before Judas Priest, did you have a clear vision of what wanted to do with your life?
Yes, like I say, it was a long time ago, and I was young. I was a young teenager, and I bought a guitar and wanted to play it, but I never expected really to be a professional musician. But I kept playing and playing, and one day, after a year or two, it just came to me that perhaps it was possible for me to be in a band and play music for the rest of my life. And so that's what I tried to do. I didn't know if I was going to succeed or fail, but I was so intense and enthusiastic about what was happening in the world with music at that time in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
What was happening was so wonderful, with all of the bands that I was hearing of and going to see, and it was just a great place to be in time. And I got caught up and swept away with the whole thing. And so I just decided to try to continue and to make a band and to make music, and the rest is history, I guess.
In the 70s, Judas Priest involved in album after album, but you still couldn't leave him from the band.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But in all fairness, by the time, I guess I would probably be 18, 19 years old. But around about then, in the late 60s, there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of great bands, and then the bands kept on coming more and more, Deep Purple, Budgie, Led Zeppelin, all of the bands. There were so many bands, Black Sabbath, and I was competing with all of these bands. And so it was tough. And so it was hard to get a record deal. It was hard to become noticed. And so, but we continued. We believed in ourselves, and we believed that we had something special. So we just continued and continued. And like you said, Jonathan, throughout the 70s, it was tough. It was hard. And then suddenly we had punk and new wave, and it was a battle. Everything was a battle. But we came through the other end, then it became 1979, 1980, British Steel. We put on the leather, the studs. We kept forging our way, through the years to try to become successful. But as I mentioned before, everything was evolving, because when we first started Judas Priest, when we were booked to play a concert, the promoters said, Judas Priest, progressive blues band. We weren't a progressive blues band, but the other genres of music hadn't been invented then. Hard rock, heavy metal did not exist. So it made things difficult. But things got better, especially when rock music was consolidated, hard rock was consolidated, heavy rock was consolidated, and then eventually heavy metal. So we got caught up along this long, twisting, winding, difficult road to success, but fortunately, we eventually made it.
In the early days, the band had a more psychedelic look. Do you feel connected with that image?
So, another part of the evolution of music genres and Judas Priest, it was around about 1976, I think, that I had a change. I thought that I wanted to change my image to leather and studs, the black image with the chrome. And so that's what I did. And then I guess in my own way, I tried to influence the band to change with me. And that kind of happened slowly. And that's when it became really, really good, because I think then eventually the band had a look that suited the music more. Because previously the materials, silk, satin, velvet, and the different colors didn't really suit Judas Priest, but we looked cool. But it certainly was not exactly heavy metal. So the leather and studs came about, and again, the rest is history.
You recorded in British Steel and the Tittenhurst Park, where once lived John Lennon and later Ringo Starr. What was it like to meet who the album in that place?
Yeah, I think we went to that place because it was cool. I didn't when we went there, I didn't know that it was John Lennon's house and he sold it to Ringo Starr, and Ringo was the owner when we went there. I didn't know that.
I don't know.
I don't think anybody knew that. We were just going to a lot of studios around that time, and this was just another studio. But when we got there and we realized, it was a very, very cool thing, because I was in the bedroom and all of the electricity sockets and different things, plugs, they would label John, some were labeled Yoko. It was very cool because it was where they did the White Album, wasn't it? You know, and everything was still white. But anyway, we were there to record and make music, and that's what we did. But I'm very glad of that part of the history of Judas Priest, because it was very, very cool.
In a few months, it will be 40 years since the Turbo album release. Do you see that Turbo has a risk at that time?
Well, I would say potentially it was risky. But originally, myself and Glenn, we planned to make a double album. And I like the title of Twin Turbos. That's cool. Because two albums, two turbos, yes. Twin turbos, you know, and I guess myself and Glenn, we had just ordered some Porsche turbo cars from Germany. So we were but we made it musically. But anyway, so the album was very much an eclectic mix of kind of the lighter side, but the heavier and darker side of Judas Priest. So because then, by the time we were ready, to put the album together,
Mhm.
it was kind of the mid-80s. And the mid-80s was, let's face it, let's be honest, it was feel good, it was rock and roll, it was arena rock, it was big hair, lots of girls, it was happy days, you know, and it was, you know, Judas Priest, Van Halen, Poison, Def Leppard, you name it. It was about bands selling multi-platinum albums, and I guess we wanted to join that success too.
Mm.
All honesty, and so we condensed the album down to what we thought was an album that had good continuity, good flow, sign of the times, you know, arena rock album, for better or for worse. And that's what we did. And it was very, very successful because we did sold out tour across America, all arenas, and there were a lot more girls in the audience. A lot more ladies came to see us, and it was good. And that was our moment in arena rock history, I guess. But you know, just like before, we continued after to change. And the good thing about Judas Priest, we were always shifting the gears around, you know, moving things about, changing, and like you said, not afraid to take some risks. But our main goal was to expand the boundaries of heavy metal as far as we possibly could, to get the biggest audience and to bring people into the fold and enjoy the music, including the darker side of heavy metal, which Judas Priest also had. So we could play anything from Blood Red Skies and Screaming for Vengeance, you know, to the
Defenders
Sentinel,
of the Faith.
Defenders of the Faith era, but also we could play Rock You All Around the World, Turbo Lover, Parental Guidance, Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law. And that was the good thing about Judas Priest. People never really knew what we were going to do next.
In 1990, Judas Priest went to trial after being accused of including subliminal messages in your music and already linked it to the tragic death of two young men. How did that situation affect you at that time?
Yeah, it was tough because we were obviously by then very successful, and we were in the studio finishing off the Painkiller album. So you can imagine how we felt at the time. We were very eager and wanted to release the album and go out on the world tour with the album, but this happened. It was bad news. We were subpoenaed and had to go to court for a month, and it all seemed a bit crazy, Jonathan. We couldn't really understand it because had never made music to cause harm to people ever. Why would you do that? That's crazy. It's insane. But so we had to go through the process. It was very sad. It was very unfortunate, but some band had to go through that process, and it was us. Unfortunately, we succeeded in not just in the court case itself by being exonerated 100%, but also we were able to stop people, I think, ever kind of coming at bands and our music and trying to eradicate what we were doing and who we were and oppress us and suppress our music. Unfortunately, after that court case, I think everybody went away and left all of the bands alone. And so, you know, happy days. Here we are now, and we have the freedom to continue to do what we want to do.
The lyrics have never been bad, and there are no subliminal messages. There never have been.
And these cases that are brought against people such as ourselves, and they're nearly all related to the family environment. Nothing at all to do with the music.
How did you feel when the band included on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Did it truly mean something to you?
Yes, you know, at the end of the day, I have to say now, having gone there and experienced the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and all of its grandiose production and theatre and everything, that I think that it's great. It's great to have that accolade, you know, and it's something to hold, because when you get to a certain time of life, I think it's unique. Unlike Judas Priest now, that hopefully, you know, with very, very few, maybe just Black Sabbath and Judas Priest, have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of hardcore metal bands. So now, hopefully again, that can pave the way for all of the other great bands who to also be inducted as well. You know, bands that deserve to be inducted. All of the other bands, you know, and so hopefully we will see, you know, eventually accept Saxon and all of the other metal bands that we've known and loved and grown up with, you know, eventually that they can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too.
If the opportunity ever comes, would you like to get back on stage with Judas Priest one more time?
You know, I think that unfortunately, well, it's a situation now where age is a factor, a major factor, you know, for all of us. You know, at the moment, unfortunately, Glenn is not able to participate. You know, I think with Rob, Ian, and Scott and myself, I think that we're all okay, but I don't know. I know Rob had some issues with cancer, but I think he's okay now. But I think that he's getting very late in the day, Jonathan. But I think the situation is, unfortunately, that with Rob, Ian, and the guys in Judas Priest now, it's absolutely not what they want. And so that is the situation.
Last year you were present at the Back to the Beginning. How did you mean for you to be there?
Yeah, that was wonderful to do. I was so pleased. I was so pleased when the guys approached me, you know, because, you know, I, with Sharon and Ozzy and all of the Black Sabbath guys, they're wonderful people. You know, when I've met them personally, they're so gracious and humble and down to earth. You know, that when they asked me to do it, I absolutely said yes, to be a part of that, a part of history. And it was a great thing to do. I'm so happy that I did it, and I would do it all over again. Given the chance.
And how did Ozzy passing affect you just 15 days later?
That was a shock. That was a shock to everybody, wasn't it, Jonathan? You know, but it was extremely sad. But we all knew that Ozzy his condition was not great. So I guess in a way that everybody was expecting something to happen. But I think at the same time, everybody was so relieved that Ozzy got to enjoy the moment and to do, that concert and for to be there with all of his friends and associates through history and to rejoice in that moment was very, very special. And it's caught on camera, on tape. And so at least we can be thankful that Ozzy got there, put the crown on for one last time and belted that concert out. I guess everybody's so proud of him and so happy that we got that opportunity.
Here in Buenos Aires, there is many fans who are eager to see you again. Do you have any plan to come to South America?
We've also plans to come to South America in 2027, early 27. You have a big festival down there in Brazil, which would be great. We've been asked to do that. But obviously we'd love to we also plan to come to Buenos Aires, San Diego. We'll come to Colombia, hopefully Mexico when things calm down. But this is next year. We'll play as many concerts as we possibly can. We know South America is a massive, massive, capital of the world of heavy metal. So we're very much looking forward to coming and playing as many concerts as we possibly can for you guys. Argentina, beautiful country, beautiful part of the world, beautiful people. We look forward to seeing you as soon as we possibly can.